Hello, my name is Sophia. I read you last time Fantastic Mr. Fox. I will read you again, beginning from Chapter 8. Chapter 8. The foxes begin to starve. That evening, 3 tents were put up in the crater on the hill. One for Boggis, one for Buns, and one for Bean. The tents surrounded Mr. Fox's hole, and the 3 farmers sat outside their tents eating their supper. Boggis had 3 boiled chickens smothered in dumplings. Buns had 6 donuts filled with disgusting goose liver paste, and Bean had 2 gallons of cider. All 3 of them kept their guns beside them. Boggis picked up a steaming chicken and held it close to the fox's hole. "Can you smell this, Mr. Fox?" he shouted. "Lovely tender chicken. Why don't you come up and get it?" The rich scent of chicken wafted down the tunnel to where the foxes were crouching. "Oh, Dad," said one of the small foxes, "couldn't we just sneak up and snatch it out of his hand?" "Don't you dare," said Mr. Fox. "That's just what they want to do. But we're so hungry," they cried. "How long will it be till we get something to eat?" Their mother didn't answer, nor did their father. There was no answer to give. As darkness fell, Buns and Bean switched on the powerful headlamps of the 2 tractors and shone them on to the hole. "Now," said Bean, "we'll take it in turn to keep watch. 1 watches while 2 sleep, and so on all through of the night." Boggis said, "What if the fox digs a hole right through the hill and comes out on the other side?" "You didn't think of that one, did you?" "Of course I did," said Bean, pretending he had. "Go on, then. Tell us the answer," said Boggis. Bean picked something small and black out of his ears and flicked it away. "How many men have you got working on your farm?" he asked. 35, Boggis said. "I've got 36, Buns said. "And I've got 37, Bean said. "That makes 108 men altogether. We must order them to surround the hill. Each man will have a gun and a flashlight. There will be no escape then for Mr. Fox." So the order went down to the farms, and that night 108 men formed a tight ring around the bottom of the hill. They were armed with sticks and guns and hatchets and pistols and all sorts of other horrible weapons. This made it quite impossible for fox or indeed for another animal to escape from the hill. Boggis and Buns and Bean sat upon small stools staring at the fox's hole. They didn't talk much. They just sat there with their guns on their lap. Every so often Mr. Fox would creep a little closer towards the mouth of the tunnel and take a sniff. Then he would creep back again and say, "They're still there." "Are you quite sure?" Mrs. Fox would ask. "Positive," said Mr. Fox. "I can smell that man Bean a mile away. He stinks." Chapter 9. Mr. Fox has a plan. For 3 days and 3 nights, this waiting game went on. "How long can a fox go without food or water?" Boggis asked on the 3rd day. "Not much longer." "Now," Bean told him. He'll make a run for it soon. He'll have to. Bean was right. Down in the tunnel, the foxes were slowly but surely starving to death. If only we could have just a tiny sip of water, said one of the small foxes. Oh, Dad, can you do something? Couldn't we make a dash for it, Dad? We'd have a little bit of chance, wouldn't we? No chance at all, snapped Mrs. Fox. I refuse to let you go up there and face those guns. I'd sooner you stay down here and die in peace. Mr. Fox had not spoken for a long time. He had been sitting quite still, his eyes closed, not even hearing that the others were saying. Mrs. Fox knew that he was trying desperately to think of a way out. And now, as she looked at him, she saw him stir himself and get slowly to his feet. He looked back at his wife. There was a little spark of excitement dancing in his eyes. What is it, darling? Said Mrs. Fox quickly. I've just had a bit of an idea, Mr. Fox said carefully. What? They cried. Oh, Dad, what is it? Come on, said Mrs. Fox. Tell us quickly. Well, said Mr. Fox. Then he stopped his eyes and sadly shook his head. He sat down again. It's no good, he said. It wouldn't work after all. Why not, Dad? Because it means more digging, and we aren't any of us strong enough for that after 3 days and nights without food. Yes, we are, Dad, cried the small foxes, jumping up and running to their father. We can do it. You see, if we can't, so can you. Mr. Fox looked at the 4 small foxes, and smiled. What fine children I have, he thought. They are starving to death, and they haven't had a drink for 3 days. But they are still undefeated. I must not let them down. I suppose we could give it a try, he said. Let's go, Dad. Tell us what you want us to do. Slowly, Mr. Fox got to her feet. She was suffering more than any of them from the lack of food and water. She was very weak. I am so sorry, she said, but I don't think I am going to be much help. You stay right where you are, my darling, said Mr. Fox. We can handle this by ourselves. Chapter 10, Boggy's Chicken House, number 1. This time we must go in a very special direction, said Mr. Fox, pointing sideways and downwards. So he and his 4 children started to dig once again. The work went much more slowly now, yet they kept at it with great courage, and little by little the tunnel began to grow. Dad, I wish you would tell us where we are going, said one of the children. I dare not to, Dad, said Mr. Fox, because this place I'm hoping to get to is so marvelous that if I describe it to you now, you would go crazy with excitement. And then, if we failed to get there, which is very possible, you would die of disappointment. I don't want to raise your hopes too much, my darlings. For a long, long time, they kept on digging. For how long, they did not know, because there were no days and no nights down there in the murky tunnel. But at last, Mr. Fox gave the order to stop, "I think," he said, "we'd better take a peep upstairs now and see where we are. I know where I want to be, but I can't possibly be sure we're anywhere near it." Slowly, wearily, the foxes began to slope the tunnel up towards the surface. Up and up it went, until up towards the surface, up and up it went, until suddenly they began to something hard above their heads, and they couldn't go up any further. Mr. Fox reached up to examine this hard thing. "It's wood," he whispered. "Wood planks? What does that mean, Dad?" "It means, unless I am very much mistaken, that we are doing underneath the somebody's house," whispered Mr. Fox. "Be very quiet now while I take a peek." Carefully, Mr. Fox began pushing up one of the floor doors. The board creaked most terribly, and they all ducked down, waiting for something awful to happen. Nothing happened, so Mr. Fox pushed up a second board, and then very, very cautiously, he poked his head up through the gap. He let out a shriek of excitement. "I've done it!" he yelled. "I've done it! First time! I've done it! I've done it!" He pulled himself up through the gap in the floor and started prancing and dancing with joy. "Come on up," he sang out. "Come on up and see where you are, my darlings. What a sight for a hungry fox! Hallelujah! Hooray! Hooray!" The 4 small foxes scrambled up out of the tunnel, and what a fantastic sight it was that now met their eyes! They were in a huge shed, and the whole place was teeming with chickens. There were white chickens and brown chickens and black chickens by the thousand. "Bogus chicken, house number 1, cried Mr. Fox. "It's exactly what I was aiming at. I hit it slap in the middle, first time. Isn't that fantastic? And if I may say so, rather clever." The small foxes went wild with excitement. They started running around in all directions, chasing the stupid chickens. "Wait!" ordered Mr. Fox. "Don't lose your heads. Stand back. Calm down. Let's do this properly. First of all, everything have a drink of water." They all ran over to the chickens' drinking trough and lapped up the lovely cool water. Then Mr. Fox chose 3 of the plumpest hens, and with a clever flick of his jaws, he killed them instantly. "Back to the tunnel," he ordered. "Come on! No fooling around! The quicker you move, the quicker you shall have something to eat." One after another, they climbed down through the hole in the floor, and soon they were all standing once again in the dark tunnel. Mr. Fox reached up and pulled the floorboards back into place. He did this with great care. He did it so that no one could tell they have ever been moved. "My son," he said, giving the 3 plump chickens to the biggest of his 4 small children, "run back with these to your mother. Tell her to prepare a feast. Tell her the rest of us will be along in a jiffy, as soon as we had made a few other little arrangements." Chapter 11. A Surprise for Mrs. Fox. The small fox ran back along the tunnel as fast as he could, carrying the 3 plump hens. He was exploding with joy. "Just wait," he kept thinking. "Just wait till Mommy sees this." He had a long way to run, but he never stopped once on the way. and he came bursting in upon Mrs. Fox. "Mommy!" he cried, out of breath. "Look, Mommy, look! Wake up and see what I've brought you." Mrs. Fox, who was weaker than ever, now from lack of food, opened one eye and looked at the hens. "I'm dreaming," she murmured, and closed the eyes again. "You're not dreaming, Mommy. They're real chickens. We've saved. We are not going to starve." Mrs. Fox opened both eyes and sat up quickly. "But my dear child," she cried, "what on earth?" "Boggy's chicken house #1, spluttered the small fox. "We tunneled right up under the floor, and you've never seen so many big fat hens in all your life. And Dad said to prepare a feast. They'll be back soon." The sight of the food seemed to give new strength to Mrs. Fox. "A feast it shall be," she said, standing up. "Oh, what a fantastic fox you are! Hurry up, child, and start plucking those chickens." Far away down in the tunnel, the fantastic Mr. Fox was saying, "Now for the next bit, my darlings. This one's be as easy as pie. And all we have to do is dig another little tunnel from here to there." "To where, Dad?" "Don't ask so many questions. Start digging."